Tracking our high fire danger throughout the region, I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, and on the heels of that, we get into a heat risk ahead for the work and school week. Let's check it out with our weather impact alert headlines. The timing, when through Monday, our impact being that fire danger due to the dry, gusty winds, having to need that fire ready bag and our evacuation plan at hand. This is the time of year we pivot from the rainy season into the dry season, and that fire danger will expand as we get farther and farther from our last rain event. Red flag warning in effect up and down the valley for elevations below 1,000 feet. That includes the Carquinez Strait and the Delta until Monday at 8 p.m. Satellite and radar, there's not much going on throughout California, but just off to the east, we have a low pressure system that's diving its way into the Great Basin. In opposition, we have a building high pressure ridge. So we're going to continue to see the opportunity for these dry, gusty winds into our Monday. We've got you covered, though, on ABC 10 Plus. You want to make sure you download that wherever you stream for free on TV. Not only do we have these extended forecasts, but also weather explainers, weather and climate specials on ABC 10 Plus. Our rundown for our fire transitioning into heat timeline. For Sunday night into Monday, we continue to track those gusty winds, low humidity and low elevation fire danger, again with that red flag warning in effect. On Tuesday, we get lighter winds, still sunny, and it sets the stage for the peak warmth developing into our Wednesday with moderate heat risk throughout the valley. Again, the dry, gusty winds stay with us through Sunday night into Monday. As we start to see those low pressure systems move east, it will basically just be all about this ridge of high pressure, sinking, warming air. And again, we'll lose the impacts of the high fire danger, but we'll pick up the heat because of the atmosphere just being primed for that high pressure ridge. Peak wind gusts are going to continue through tonight into tomorrow. For that forecast, you can see anywhere from about 25 to 30 plus miles per hour throughout the valley. It will be most problematic, very likely near the Delta as well as areas west of I-5. By the time we get into our Monday evening forecast, things start to drop off a bit with those winds. But you can see what happens with the humidity. There's very little overnight recovery. Typically, we see those humidities come up overnight, and it kind of gets us ready for a little bit of moisture in the atmosphere. But instead, with those northwest winds, everything just continues to dry out. So those humidities will be down about 15 to 20% up and down the valley. So again, it's the low humidity as well as the dry, gusty winds that elevates the fire danger. We went from that fire weather watch late in the week into a red flag warning as the confidence grew due to critical fire conditions developing throughout the region. Again, this is low elevation because of how the fuels are primed this time of year for lower elevation fine grasses and brush that usually dry out pretty quickly. So our go bag, the 5 P's to keep in mind: people, pets, papers, prescriptions, and photos. If you can just have those things ready and know everything that you need to know to get out the door quickly, then you'll be ready to evacuate if need be. We've seen little pulses of heat coming and going. Nothing too extreme, though. Our average high about 81 degrees. That just showcases how little heat it takes to get those fine fuels very dry and primed for rapid fire growth. Our May has been kind of pointed with some cooler than average temperatures as well as warmer than average. In the middle of the month here on the 9th and 10th, that's when we saw those warmest temperatures of the month, hitting 94 degrees. So we have yet to hit 95, believe it or not. Soil moisture, though, up and down the valley, that's where we see it the driest this point in the year. It's pretty typical to see that dry in the valley and parts of the hills as opposed to those bigger mountain areas, which take a while to actually dry out, especially in a pretty good water year like what we've had. Fuel dryness just now starting to approach kind of that neutral category for the Sacramento Valley and the hills. This is pretty much playing out. Same for the Diablo and Santa Cruz Mountains, a little closer to the coast. So we're looking at that energy release component starting to edge towards that neutral category. In the blue, you'll notice where we stand on a typical year. We're running just a little bit below that. So we're on our way to those large fires likely. So again, we're below that threshold, and you can see the significant fire potential is going to be on the lower category, but we are dealing with some dryness. Combine that with some gusty, dry winds, and again, that just elevates the fire risk. So we're, like I said, priming the atmosphere to a bigger warming event coming our way for the middle of the week. That stays in place largely through the week. So just get ready for temperatures temperatures that are running above average through much of the work week. We've got our weather impact alert in place for Monday. Average high 81 to 82 degrees, and we'll be running above that until we get to almost the holiday weekend. I know we're already to that Memorial holiday weekend by the time we get into our Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So our average first days of 80, 85, 90, we've already hit those. The first average 95-degree day is May 26, and we're getting awfully close to that. But as it stands right now, I'm not actually forecasting that to happen in our 10-day forecast. First 100-degree day, we have to go into the beginning and middle of June before we typically see that. Monday, we have a lower risk of any heat risk developing. It's not until we get into that Wednesday forecast that we actually start to see that popping up throughout the valley. We'll see a little tinge of that on Thursday as well. Many folks like to head to the waterways, especially for the Memorial holiday weekend, the unofficial start to summer. And as you can see, our reservoirs are very full. Things are looking quite nice at this point in the year. We're not only almost full, but we're well above average for all of our major water supplies. That being said, we are starting to see some releases happen. Lake Shasta, the headwater for the Sacramento River, is starting to do some of those releases. So we have a little bit of downward trend here, and we're a little bit ahead of average of what we normally see, that downward trend. Most of those reservoirs are going to peak right in the middle of May, towards the end of our beginning of June. Our current for Lake Oroville, we're almost full right now, 99% full. Haven't quite seen the downward trend on that yet. We're also really full for Folsom Lake. So if you're headed out to do some boating, some swimming, some fishing, what have you, should be quite nice. But they are doing, like I said, a little bit of releases. So what's happening is those waterways that are going to be downstream for those releases are very cold, running only about 55 to 65 degrees. San Joaquin, a little bit warmer at 70. Tuolumne in LaGrange, that's going to be in the foothills. That's quite cold in the 50s. So the Sierra and foothill waters are still in the 40s and 50s, with Lake Tahoe water temperature still below 50 degrees. Now, we will see those surface waters warm up ever so slightly when we see that high pressure ridge build in. No rain or snow expected in the forecast, but as this low approaches from the coast, that's what's going to knock down some of the building heat. We're still on the likely warmer side of things for the end of May, beginning of June. Likely wetter for the Pacific Northwest and just kind of brushing Northern California. So we'll have to see how those systems start to play out, bringing us the chance of any additional accumulation for the month of May. Highs for our Monday in the 60s for this year are still sitting in the 70s and 80s through much of the foothills. Lower foothills, we're going to be close to 90. Across the coast, it's 70s and 80s. But once we head inland, we're already starting to see how those dry and warming winds are impacting our forecast, bringing us up into the 90s as we start the new work and school week. Some kids already out of school, though. 60s for our highs along the Sierra. Wednesdays, that peak warmth in the 70s. We'll see 80s to near 90 for the foothills. And then again, for the coast, we'll keep it in the 60s and 70s. A bit breezy to start off the week, and then we'll see ample sunshine coming in. Weather impact alert stays in place on Monday. And then as we head towards the middle of the week, again, we get that brief bump up in temperatures back down into the 80s. So we're pretty close to average actually through the holiday weekend until we get to Memorial Day, and then we start to see that 90 popping back up.